Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 2 for the love of the show. I am one of your hosts, Spurge. I'm rocking my Omega shirt tonight because our special guest does some really cool stuff. Good doctor. And right over there is the guy who joins me, the author of the book and the inspiration for this show, the one and the only
Good doctor.
So, good doctor, I'm going to ask our special guest if he can commission a Kenny Omega type thing.
Right on.
Because this guy has got some cool stuff. Good doctor, explain who our guest for today is.
So our guest today is none other than MAZ Adams. You may have seen his work on WWEshop.com. He's got several different artist renderings of wrestlers from Stone Cold Steve Austin to Rhea Ripley. And God, I'm trying to remember how I came across his work. I think I know I saw it originally on the website, and I think I ran into him on Facebook, and we just started chatting about everything. And I'm like, this guy would be a perfect guest for the show. So that's it, man.
Without further ado, I want to do this first, good doctor, because right here is some of the guy's artwork. Right here, Sing My Song, the Seth Rollins. This is courtesy of Mr. Maz Adams' Instagram page. Here he is, the man himself, the one and only Maz Adams. What was the inspiration of this picture right here?
The inspiration for that was that I had already been told that I was going to be doing a Seth Rollins piece. It was right before Mania. We were trying to get as much done as we could to hopefully launch it at WWE World. And unfortunately, just because Mania time's crazy for the WWE, there was a lot going on. The Rollins piece didn't get okayed in time. And I was supposed to meet him like a fan and get a photo op with him. So I wanted to have something to hold up. So with about a week left, knowing that my piece, I wasn't going to be able to hold up my official piece, I was like, let me throw something together, in the next few days that I can hold up for a photo with him. And I did just that. So, obviously I wanted to do something loud because, that's the type of guy he is, not in a bad way. He's very charismatic. He's all about the drip god. So I thought I would do something bright that fits his personality that would make for a cool picture. And, he seemed to appreciate it. And then the final piece that I did is something completely different, but still carries through with being very colorful.
Yeah. See, that's interesting. So let's get into this. So how did this all start from you? I mean, we were talking before we did the recording, and you're talking about you're talking about your dad with us. So like, how did this all start for you into getting into where you're at and all this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's a story I've told a million times, but it's never going to change because it's the true story. I've been very blessed and fortunate in the fact that I always knew that I wanted to be an artist. A lot of kids in high school, junior high, we'd go through and they'd still want to be sure, what do I want to go to school for? What do I want to do with my life? I never had that. I always knew that I wanted to do art. And on top of that, I was even luckier because I was blessed with parents that never questioned it and always believed that I would get to where I wanted to be. And I can't, say enough about, my mom and my dad and, what they did to help get me here. But I always loved drawing. My dad was a big sports fan. He took me to my first WWE, which was then WWF event when I was about 6 or 7 years old. He surprised me. I had been watching it since I was about 4. And seeing it on TV is one thing, but then when you get, you see it in person, nobody puts on an event like the WWE, and even back then as the WWF, there's just something larger than life about it. I was hooked. I've been to so many events since. I've never stopped watching it. And same thing with baseball. I fell in love with that game. It was a way that I could bond with my dad. And about maybe 6-7 years ago, My passion for sports, specifically at the time baseball, and my passion for art crossed paths, and it just kind of went off from there, and it's been a dream come true.
Now, you say that your mom is your biggest fan, and you say that your mom is no longer with us.
No, she is. All right.
No. Yeah, sorry. It's okay. In
what?
spirit, she's with me. No,
Yeah,
you're right. You're right. Yeah.
It says,
Okay.
I've got my notes. It says that your mom's
Okay.
you're here. And as I'm reading, you said, so what was it like when you showed your mom your very first piece? Because you say that she has a lot of influence in your art. So like, what was that? What is that influence that your mom gave you? And how is it that you still see her and feel her in your pieces that you do?
Sure. So, like I said, she was always my biggest fan. My dad worked a lot growing up. He's still a very hard worker, and he was away a lot. And my mom was the one who was like the stay-at-home mom. So her and I, were always very close. She was always there for me, emotionally and just as support. I started drawing literally when I was so young that I hold a pencil incorrectly, just because that's how I got the strength. So I had teachers that tried to like make me change how I hold it, and I was miserable. And she told them like, leave him alone. He's, why are you going to try to do that to him? But she was always the one to be like the first person I would show my work to. So when she did pass, it was tough. Like I felt like, what's the point of drawing? And I've loved drawing my whole life. So even for me to think about that was crazy. But I was like, well, what's the point of me drawing if I can't show her stuff? And then I had the realization that like I can't let that stop me, and I wanted her to be with me in every piece. So I don't think on the WWE stuff and not on some of the like MLB stuff that I've done, but if I do a drawing, 9 times out of 10, I have my little insignia in the background, and I actually put her initials in there so that I make sure that she's in every piece that that I do and always with me. And, my dad then at a certain point really picked up the slack and became a lot more invested in me and my art. And a lot of that had to do with the sports stuff. He says he lives vicariously through me. I've gotten him, we got on the field at Yankee Stadium. We got Don Mattingly to come over. I got a picture of the three of us, on the field at Yankee Stadium. I've gotten him in the back in the locker room. I've gotten him, with me on Yes Network. So I've always taken him along with me, so we've bonded over that. And there's the pride that he has over it. It's like the most fulfilling thing, because I've never directly tried to make him proud. Like I've never measured my own success by that or anything like that. And I know that could, be an issue for a lot of times sons and their fathers, but it happened organically, and we were never not close, but it's just ramped up. And to be able to latch onto this and share this with him has been amazing. So it's something I'm grateful for. And I don't know if this would have happened, necessarily if my mom was still with us, but I'm great. I try not to be, angry or upset about what was taken from me. I try to be grateful for what I have and the time I had with my mom and the role that she played in me doing what I do. And, when I tell people like this is for all of us, like I mean it. I just feel very fortunate to be able to live out my dreams to any extent. And I like to share that with other people because I couldn't do it without them.
Very cool, man. Very cool.
I got goosebumps.
Your story reminds me a lot of my own as far as writing goes, with my grandfather and taking me to baseball games and WWF when I was 6 years old, as I mentioned in my book. So I totally get where you're coming from. Every time I write a piece, I always think back to him. He loved to read, stuff that I wrote. And so that's something I always think about too. So yeah, man, that's definitely a good reason to do what you do,
Absolutely. I draw and I create because I love it. I do it for me. But then if there's even one person that enjoys what I do or finds inspiration in my story, to me, that's when people tell me that like all the time, like either they're like, I can't believe I'm talking to you, or like, you're such an inspiration. Like that's crazy to me because I'm literally just a fan. I'm still that kid. Like,
yeah,
I'm the same as everybody else. I still can't believe it. I still get very emotional about it, and it still doesn't feel like it's real. But yeah, that's important to have that emotional responsibility.
What would you say is the most meaningful piece that you've ever created?
So it's tough because I'm going to go the sentimental route.
Sure.
But when my mom was laid to rest, I did a personal little piece for her that we put in the coffin with her that she's
Wow.
buried with. So that, and I wrote a note on the back of it. So not my best piece by any means. It was probably my toughest piece to draw. I just wanted
Sure.
to do something to be in there. But I mean, in terms of like emotionally hard, I would say I felt the pressure with the Stone Cold piece because of what he meant to me as a young man, and just the fact that I fought so hard to get this opportunity to do stuff officially with the WWE, that now it's put up or shut up. It was time for me to do it. So, and to do it with him, the most popular superstar, the most marketable, biggest draw of all time. And like I said, just my whole closet was all Stone Cold T-shirts. Every cool shirt,
Sure.
that he had, and I had them all, man. I was legitimately a fan. I freaked out when I would go see him, at Madison Square Garden or Nassau Coliseum. From the time that he was, the ringmaster with the WWF, because I wasn't like a big WCW guy, and I definitely wasn't watching WCW at that point. But yeah, there it is right there. And the thing that the feedback, just to go off a little bit, that I've been getting on that is people don't realize until they get it, because those prints are huge. They're 16 by 20. All of the little intricate line work that I've done in this, and a lot of it you can't tell because it's like in his vest, it's covered by gray. If you see it in person, and I would say if you're a fan or you want to get on, picking up these prints, I would definitely get them while you can, because I'm sure they're not going to be on the site forever, and they'll move on to others. It's just that there's so much detail, so much line work. I put everything into that, like to my physical well-being, like at stake. I have a bad neck. I have messed up like wrists, but we only have one life, man. Just like the wrestlers themselves, right? If they go out for a week, they could lose their spot, and there's that fear. And right, wrong, or indifferent, I have the same kind of thing. I never want to say no to something. This was my chance to shine. So there's a lot of responsibility in that, and not just for me, but everybody that wants to be in a position that I am. So I don't take that lightly, and I'm going to make the most of it.
How long did that piece take you to do?
A long time. It was actually, ironically, I started with him first because I was like, oh, it's the simplest composition. It's a skull and it's Stone Cold, and then there's like broken glass in the background. That being said, that piece had the most revisions, because it's a collaborative process with the WWE. And obviously there are certain things that they look at, and to their credit, if you compare the initial piece, which you'll never see, to the final product, even though it's, the same composition, it's definitely a better looking piece. So, they know what they're doing. And, if I just came out with that original piece, you probably would have been like, oh, it looks great. But then when you see this final next to it, you'll be like, oh no, I can see why they made those changes. So it was a lot of editing, a lot of changes.
Sure.
But, I start with a concept. The concept gets approved. And when that finally gets approved, then we start with the final. So, I mean, I can look, and see, because I actually keep track of like how long pieces take me. But I know, I want to say that might have been like 50 to 60 hours total or something. It was nuts. Ooh. The line work.
How many hours?
It was like 50 to 60. I have it down, but
wow.
Yeah,
that's just.
It ironically was the most complicated one, just because of there's so much line work, and then once that's done, then it's the coloring, and that, I mean, I enjoy the inking. As a guy who went to school for comic art, the fun to me is the line work and the inking. So, not that I don't enjoy coloring, but you want a final product that shows that work and that wows people. But I think if they saw the process too and were here with me, like it's not easy. Like, just because it's something I enjoy doesn't mean it's easy, or it's still work. It's exhausting, mentally, physically. I work a regular full-time job. So like, I just got home not too long ago from work, and now's the time normally when I'll be drawing,
I was going to ask you that if you do another job besides this.
Oh, yeah. And then I do photography too. So
yeah.
I
got great photos.
Thank you.
We got some of your photos too.
Oh,
that
awesome.
You sent me, and man, they're as a photographer myself, who's only been shooting for about 2.5, 3 years. Yeah. You got some great stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's phenomenal work. Did Steve get to see this piece?
I don't know. I assume so. I can say that he will at some point if he hasn't already, because there are plans where they're going to be doing superstar editions.
Right.
which everybody's been asking me for. They're like, oh, I want it, but I want the signed version, because they've done so far the two versions. They've done the regular versions, which just are per you unsigned, still fully licensed, still the same piece, and then they've done my artist sign editions, which are out of 25. The
Right.
Stone Cold had sold out. There's still a handful of Rhea Ripley's left. There's still some Seth Rollins. There's still some Randy Orton. But then the next step will be that they're gonna release the version signed by me and signed by the Superstar, which I'm excited. That's you can't. Like I said, Stone Cold's gonna be signing my piece. It's officially licensed. When I saw that WWE officially licensed sticker on my stuff, I cried.
Yeah, man.
It's just like I said, I'm legitimately a huge fan, and I don't take any of this lightly. It's mind-boggling to me.
In my book, I feature a gentleman named Kyle Scarborough, who is a tattoo artist here in Missouri, but he designed the Fiend mask for Bray Wyatt. And that led into him designing T-shirts now for a number of wrestlers.
Yep.
Any thought that could come down the line as well?
Again,
shirt.
As a fan, of course, I hope. My job is to draw what I'm given and do it to the best of my ability, so that hopefully it'll lead to other opportunities. I'm not going to lie and say that I don't want that I wouldn't love to have other merchandise with my stuff on it. Because again, I am a legitimate fan,
Yeah.
Like I'll see a lot of athletes, and I'm not going to single out wrestlers because it could be anybody, who say, oh, I was the biggest fan growing up, but then they're like miserable to people. And you're like, were you really though? Like me, I'm never not accessible to anybody. Like
Right.
I said, I can't believe that I'm even in this position. I'm still the same person. Like it's crazy. So yeah, I mean, I want it to happen. Do I know if it will? I don't know. And if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. Yeah, that's one of my favorite pieces, and I was lucky enough to get a copy of that signed by him.
Really?
Yeah, when he had taken his first, when he took his hiatus before he returned, he was always a guy. I don't want to say I have a type, but I do tend to like wrestlers that are, thicker build.
Same with me, man.
Yeah, I feel like I live vicariously through them. Kevin Owens to me is like, I always tell my wife, I'm like, if I was a wrestler, I'd be Kevin Owens because,
you could look like, you kind of look like you could be related to him. I mean,
yeah, look, I guess a little bit. I'm just not French Canadian, but that, when Bray passed away, I mean, like most people, I cried. I was devastated.
Yeah,
I was there at Extreme Rules when he came back, and that crowd was something else. It was the craziest experience of chaos, and I had an opportunity to meet him a few times, and I was like, oh, I'll meet him eventually, because there was stuff going on at the time, and you regret it. Obviously there were bigger issues and people more affected by it than somebody like me.
Sure.
He is somebody I would love to draw. I know a lot of people. When I asked, who would you want to see me draw, he was probably number one. As a guy that went to school for comic art and used to do a lot of comic and horror conventions, how could you not have fun drawing the Fiend? And that was the first piece that I really felt like my inspiration. I was like, I want to do like a black light, kind of poster, like you'd see in the back of Spencer's, or like something very bright. And I was calling them my WWE Neon series. And so that was the first one in the series. He's definitely somebody that I want to revisit. And also because I worked in cardiology for 10 years. I just left the cardiology field. So when I heard his story, I knew exactly everything that pretty much happened. I could make heads and tails of it. So in that way too, I feel connected to him. But I'm glad
I agree with you, man.
I'm glad you picked that piece, because that is like, I think it works.
This is For the Love of the Show with our special guest MAZ Adams. I am one of the hosts. Spurge, the inspiration for this show. Right next to me is the man who wrote the book For the Love of the Show. You can go find it on Amazon.com. You just got to go put in For the Love of the Show, the one and the only.
The Good Doctor.
And right below us is the man that is just doing all this amazing stuff. So it's funny, as you guys are talking, I'm going through your Instagram page and looking at stuff, and you said Bray Wyatt. I was like, ooh, I saw the Bray Wyatt picture. I got to put that up there. But I want to backtrack a little. I want to go back to your mother's death, because there was something interesting that you said that you did in a piece that you had buried with her and wrote a note for her and all of that. What was the first piece that you drew after your mother was gone and buried, and how long before that first piece came into your head after your mother was gone? What was that piece?
It was what I would probably refer to as Old Faithful. My favorite character, aside from Batman growing up, was always Yoda. And, I had a tradition with my mom, because I'm originally from Brooklyn. I spent a lot of time, most of my life in New Jersey, so a lot of diners. Whenever we'd go to a diner, she would have a pen in her purse, and she would know without me asking that she would take the pen out. There you go, man. She would take the pen out, and I would draw on the placemat. So, in her honor, I continue to do that. But Yoda was one of my main go-tos. My grandmother, her mother, always would joke around that like I would be a police sketch artist, and the person would be like, oh yeah, I saw them and they had, they were 6 foot, whatever, eyes like the, whatever. And then no matter what they said, I would just turn around and go, is this the person? And it would just be Yoda, because that's all I love drawing. Yoda and Batman were like all I drew when I was younger. Aside from like, there's some other stuff, but those were like my go-tos. If I'm just like messing around and I want to do something I feel like I could knock out of the park, it would be that guy.
Now this is a little off the topic, but
yeah.
Favorite actor who played Batman?
Oh man, so even though like when it was announced, I have different answers because it, for nostalgic reasons, Keaton was my Batman growing up. Kevin Conroy, I think, is all around, the gentleman who he's gone, unfortunately passed away, but he was the Batman, the animated series, which I grew up with. And to even now, like the reason I'm about to give you my overall answer is because of him. To me, it's, as far as Batman, even though he didn't get a chance to explore everything, it's Ben Affleck, because he has that chiseled jawline. He had that bulky Dark Knight Returns look.
Yep.
Yes, I know that, like, he didn't really get a chance to flesh out the Bruce Wayne part. I think Bale did that the best, because that's the first time they really explored the aloof, that Bruce Wayne is the mask, not Batman. But I mean, just the way, it sounds, I don't mean it to sound this way, but, I like a thicker, destructive, older looking Batman, and that suit in itself, I don't care who was in that suit, that it would probably be my favorite Batman in that suit. I love Zack Snyder. I hate that he gets so much hate. So yeah, to answer your question, a little bit of everybody for different reasons. Like, I know that they all serve their purpose, and that's what's great about the character, is that the spirit is the same, even if things change. But even Pattinson, man, I love what Matt Reeves did with the Batman.
I do. I like it.
Amazing movie. I think that you're going to see the character grow in the next film. Yeah, man, just Ben Affleck, dude. He's just, anytime I can get like a figure or statue of him in any of those incarnations, Nightmare Batman, the armored Batman. I mean, it's just like, it's perfection, dude.
Now, another question, with all these artists rendering, all these pieces of art you've done, have you yet had anyone try to or tell you maybe that they got one of your pieces of art tattooed on them?
So not in that respect. When I was younger, I did actually like design tattoos for people, and there was a time in my life where I was an apprentice.
Yeah.
I was actually told I was too nice for that industry. And the funny thing is, like, I have tattoos. I don't have like a lot, but I have a pretty big one on my left arm. I have a few on my legs, one on my other arm, but there was like, you'd get like that hate of like, in everyday life at jobs, people look at you funny with tattoos. Well, at a tattoo shop, because I wasn't covered head to toe, people would look at me funny, and they'd be like, we can't trust a guy to tattoo me who's covered, and I'm like, I would think if I'm like picking and choosing the artwork, like, you would trust me more than somebody who's got everything under the sun tattooed on them. Like, I worked with people that would just get tattooed every week, just get something on them in the shop, instead of like wanting to learn. And so, but everything happens for a reason, even if you don't know the reason at the time. So just the fact that people want to buy my art, I'm sure there are people out there that I've never met that probably have something from one place or another because of social media. Once it's up on the internet, I had that happen. I'm sure I'll talk about it later with a photo I took that just blew up on the internet, and I didn't watermark it because it's one time I didn't, and it ended up blowing up, went viral, and I was like, you gotta be shitting me. The one time I don't watermark it. So, it's if people like my stuff, that's cool enough. But tattooing would be a step further.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, because I was gonna say, because as I'm scrolling, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I want to see if there's a picture that I can find real quick. And if you guys haven't seen it, go to his Instagram. You can find him on Instagram, Facebook, all of that stuff. With his web, his Instagram is MAZ Adams Art.
Yeah. Yep.
Twitter, MAZ Adams Art. So go on there. You can find it. So as we're talking, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this. I want to go back to your comic book days. Because I'm going through here and I'm looking, and you're drawing the old the old 50s, 40s monster characters, man.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm going through it. I'm like, you're going old school stuff. I mean, like right here, I'm looking at it. Possibly one of the greatest of all time horror directors. Directors, Alfred Hitchcock. So when was it as a kid that you decided this is what I wanted to do and draw and become a comic book type guy? Like, what was it that just clicked in you and said, this is what I want to do?
My earliest memories were literally me sitting at the table, in school in pre-K while the kids were playing with blocks or playing at the sand station or whatever. I was drawing. That was my happy spot. That's where I wanted to be. I always knew since then that this is what I want to do for a living. I didn't care about knowing how I was going to make it happen. I just knew that if I was drawing, it was going to happen. So yeah, I mean, the irony is, which a lot of people don't know, is without hyperbole, or, I was the biggest chicken growing up. I wouldn't go to school on Halloween. I didn't go trick-or-treating. I couldn't go in any store that had any kind of Halloween decorations.
Like here. Nostradamus,
or the Phantom of the Opera,
the Phantom of the Opera, like,
yeah. So,
did you ever see the original? But that's what you drew. Just I mean, like, what?
So a lot of these were actually for like my Inktober challenge, where I would do a sketch. Like I tried to do like a 20-minute sketch a day. It ends up some of them took a lot longer, and I was like, screw it, like I'm gonna finish it. But yeah, I mean, I never in a million years thought that I would be doing scary stuff, because I'm not even joking. If you said the word Dracula as a kid, I would cry. Like, I was the biggest chicken. But the funny thing was, I always loved comics. My friend's grandfather, growing up in Brooklyn in Canarsie, he owned a comic book store. So I used to get to go there and we get free comics. And, you pick up whatever cover you liked, because I wasn't reading it when I was that young. But I would bring home the issue and I would try to draw the cover and stuff like that. So I always knew that comic art was like what I wanted to do. But then when I graduated, because I went to the Joe Kubert School of Cartoon and Graphic Art, and for those who may not know Joe Kubert or the Kubert family, much like Cody Rhodes, the Rhodes or the Von Erichs are royalty in wrestling, the Kuberts are royalty in the comic book field.
Yep.
So I got Andy, who's one of my favorite artists, who's one of Joe's sons. I had him my second year as a teacher. My third year, I had Joe, who's passed on to now, legend. I mean, one of the greatest of all time. So once I graduated school from there, I started doing the comic show, comic convention circuit. And I had somebody reach out to me at a show I did in Cherry Hill. And she said, there's a horror show that they do here called Monster Mania. Like, you would do really well here. You should do it. And at the time, I'm like, still, even though I was, out of college, I still was like not into horror like that. Like, I was starting to a little bit. Because oddly, I've always been into creatures. I've always been into aliens and Bigfoot and monster designs. I just don't want to.
That was going to be my next question. I had for you.
But yeah, so I mean, I never in a million years thought that would happen. And then once I kind of really started dabbling in it, like, my love for it took off, because I love creative. I love practical effects. I love, the Jack Pierces and I mean, two of my idols, I mean, I'll tell you right now, is like Rick Baker, I think is a genius. He's one of my idols. Guillermo del Toro, who I got to meet, which was one of the few moments where I was actually like starstruck with, just struck with emotion. Guillermo was another one of my heroes. Rod Serling was one of my heroes. Obviously I didn't get to meet him, but so all these guys that are just, creative minds that are timeless and able to create things. Like, creativity comes in different forms, and I can draw characters like, or do likenesses, but I don't know if I'd be able to sit there and come up with, my own design for so-and-so, because that's the part of the imagination that, I grew out of. Whereas a lot of these guys, that's like a muscle that they keep using. So it's been a weird road. Like, I never would have thought I'd start wanting to do Batman, which I still love to do. And now I end up doing, wrestling and MLB, but it's all made sense. It's worked. It's been a natural progression, and I wouldn't change any of it.
Now, speaking of that, my co-host over here, he doesn't believe in aliens or anything like that. He thinks they're all fake, right?
Yeah.
I think he's crazy because I believe in them. Your favorite crypto?
I don't know if you
Well,
can
who
see
is
it.
your
I
favorite?
didn't shave it, so I apologize. I don't know if you could see this. You could probably find it on my Instagram. It's a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch.
Yep, I know.
Nice.
Well,
Yeah.
did you say that because
Um,
where'd it go? Because I was scrolling through because I was looking to see what you were talking about, and then here he is sitting right here. Here's your Bigfoot that you put up there.
yeah,
Your
it's
Sasquatch.
one of them. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, my I've always been into Bigfoot. I used to really roll deep in that field. Like, like I used to do a lot of conventions, do talks. I had some art in documentaries and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm not just like I have to be open-minded to the fact that they exist. I'm not closed-minded to the fact that maybe they don't. I think they do, but
Right?
because one of the quotes I love is that only one of those footprints has to be real for them to exist. Out of
That's
all the, and I used to collect the castings. Like I was
Did
friendly
you
with.
really?
Yeah, I had a lot, and then when we moved, I'm like, I'm not carrying this shit. It was so heavy. I had probably like 60 casts, and they're huge.
Wow.
But I would get them from like the source because like when you photocopy a piece of paper, every time you photocopy the paper, it gets less and less detailed and more grainy. So you want, if you're collecting casts, you want something closer to the first generation, to the original.
Right.
So I was friendly, still am, with Cliff Barrickman from Finding Bigfoot, or Dr.
Cliff?
Yeah,
You know Cliff?
I do, yeah. But
I love that show.
I don't talk to him as much anymore. But like,
Did you get to meet Bobo?
yeah, but yeah. So because I used
You
to
laugh, but that's his name. His name's
no.
Bobo. He's
Yeah.
like a 7-foot
James
tall
Fay,
dude,
yeah, James
and he
Fay.
looks like
Bobo.
a Sasquatch,
Yeah,
but he
yeah,
lost
but-
all of his weight. But
Yeah, I mean, Cliff is like what you see is what you get. He's a genuinely good dude. He is genuinely into the subject. It's not like, I'm sure what they do on TV is heightened for reality, but he's just a good guy. And I was lucky enough because he's like me. We bonded over that, being cast enthusiasts. So I had gotten a lot of copies of stuff from him and things like that. So I had a lot of nice ones. I just couldn't carry them to where I moved to. And but it's something I'll always love, and that's why I got the tattoo done, is because I truly believe that there's so much about this world that we have no idea about. We're such an arrogant species. Like, not to pick on you, but because like I'm easygoing. I don't argue over politics or beliefs or anything. But
there's no point in it because everybody's got their own opinion.
Yeah, exactly. But to me, if I had to take one thing about humans and bottle up and say this shows who we are and what we are as a species, it's the fact that we think that in this endless universe we're the only thing. Like, to me, that is crazier to think of than the fact that there are other species and other races, and well, not races, but other intelligent beings or anything out there. I think it's almost a shoo-in that there is. Now, does that mean every story is true when Jim Bob gets taken from the tractor? No, doesn't mean everyone is true. But again, only one of them has to be.
Right.
So.
See, now, Maz, I can keep going with you with the whole crypto thing, but we can see the good doctor.
Yeah, we're losing
getting bored with it because this is for the love of the show, and our special guest today is the official licensed WWE artist, MAZ Adams. I am one of your hosts, Spurge. Right next to me is the guy who inspired this show, the author of For the Love of the Show. You can go to Amazon.com and buy his book, The One and the Only.
Apparently, I'm a guy who doesn't believe in aliens or Bigfoot. I love Harry and the Hendersons. So,
hey, man, there you go.
We've had the conversation.
You brought it together because that was Rick Baker who did that. So
that's true. It was.
And I have to find it, but I'm actually into props like here and there, and I have one of the original hands from the movie.
Oh! See, I have a. He's now passed away, but one of my distant cousins on my. He was closely related to my grandfather, was named John Carl Beekler, and he was a big special effects guy. He worked on a lot of Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. So I've always been a big Nightmare on Elm Street fan. So because of him, I'll watch part 4 because he did all the effects for that. And so that's got a special place in my heart. So, I'm into the horror
Which
stuff.
Which one was part 4? Was that the one with the TV? Where he said, "Welcome to prime time."
That was 3.
Yeah, that was I think that was
that
was the one that had it was a standalone, pretty much.
Yeah, I would love to meet Robert Englund one day. I've read his autobiography. To me, Nightmare on Elm Street is the best horror franchise of all time. Maybe Aliens up there as well. I'm not a Friday the 13th guy, and Halloween there's been too many people screw it up. You know,
Your boy
although
Rob
I do
Zombie
like
screwed it
Rob
up.
Zombie. I like Rob Zombie's Halloweens. I do. I like
I
Rob
do too.
Zombie.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people don't realize Rob Zombie's a very intelligent dude, like
Very
super intelligent.
intelligent.
Yeah.
Well,
You know.
our guest is a very intelligent guy. Good doctor. So as I'm scrolling through his stuff, right?
Yeah.
I found something, and I know you're going to like this. And Maz, I gotta ask you a question.
Uh-oh, I hope there's nothing bad on there. I feel like I gave somebody my phone to show them
this
a
was
photo,
back.
and they
This
were
was
scrolling
back
through.
from September 12th of 2019.
Oh, I know exactly what I know. I have no clue. I don't remember.
12th of 2019. I don't know.
So it
The
says,
Rock?
super honored that I was asked to do a special piece for the Isaac Bruce Foundation
Oh, yes,
Gridiron
yes.
Gala
Yes,
for the
yes.
second year in a row.
Yeah.
It was a huge undertaking to complete this piece honoring the 99 Super Bowl champions. I
Wow,
love
man.
the photo of Mr. Isaac Bruce
The
holding
Reverend.
my picture. Now, the good doctor is a Chiefs fan,
Yes.
but yet for some reason he likes this guy.
I covered the Rams. I love Kurt Warner.
Gotcha.
I've got to sit down and talk to him and interview him and his wife. And I've met Reverend Ike several times. Stand-up guy, you know. The old saying, you know, don't meet your heroes doesn't hold true to either one of them.
Yeah.
Because they're what you see is what you get with them. They're class acts.
100%.
So how did you get to do this piece, and how was it? How did they have you commission this piece?
So, you know, funny thing is when people are always like saying to me, I'm lucky for, you know, what I have, it's like, and I actually had like very briefly a conversation with Bobby Lashley actually about this. I don't want to name drop, but it was very cool. But because he had posted something about like that, you know, and I mean, people don't mean to be insulting when they say you're lucky, but when you're somebody that works so hard, when you hear luck, it takes you out of the equation. Fortunate, you know, because yes, it does take the stars to align, but you know, it doesn't just happen to anybody. So what I was going to say is, you know, my advice to people is always be proactive. If you just think, you know, sitting on your ass, you know, these opportunities are going to come to you, they're not.
Right.
It's very rare that will ever happen. And you just got to reach out to every single person you think. But the funny thing was this was very early on in my, you know, professional sports artist career. Like I said, I'm a fan. So I had written to his charity because I had done a drawing of him and I had asked, you know, if I send him a copy or a few copies, you guys can sell them for the charity. Would he sign a copy for me? And the woman who runs his charity, you know, was like, absolutely. And I sent it and she wrote me back and said, Isaac loves it. He would love you to work with the charity to do stuff for the Gridiron Gala. So I did that for, I think, 3 years, you know, for them. And again, like I grew up because of my dad, a Dallas Cowboy fan, but I was such a fan of that, the Greatest Show on Turf. I collected, when I collected football cards, I you know, PC'd all those guys, you know, Isaac Bruce, Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner, Aziz Hakeem, like all of them. I loved all of them. They were exciting and fun to play. So for me, again, like, and Torrey Holt, who was my guy, like my number one guy, has one of the pieces I did. Like he was doing like a live stream or something. It was like right behind him in his man cave. And I'm like, you know, so again, like stuff like that, even though I would do it for free, like, you know, I got compensated, but when they told me like, hey, this year, this is what we want to do, I was like, oh boy, that's a lot of people. And then even the funny thing was that some of the shots of the teammates, they didn't have in the classic old yellow and blue. They had only the gold. And I had drawn them. And then I got told Isaac only really likes the yellow and blue. And I'm like, oh shit, now I have to like go back, change these jerseys. Like, but I mean, I don't blame him. I love the classic yellow and blue. Those were my favorites. But yeah, I mean, again, this is just like the beginning of that journey. And again, it's such a huge honor to do this stuff. Every little thing adds up, and it's just like along the way, it's like I want to pinch myself for every bit of it. So, and I second what you said. He is an amazingly great, sweet guy, and so is Kurt Warner.
And
Torrey Holt,
man.
How long did this picture take?
I don't even know, but it took a long time. That's another one. Just because, again, I mean, the editing it and changing the colors wasn't the most. It was trying to figure out how to fit everybody in because there were all these people. Some of them, unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of reference for, and the reference that there was so tiny that it was hard to like. And then it's like fitting these pieces together of like, I wanted to get the Vince Lombardi trophy and I wanted to get all the teammates, but it had to have space for people to sign. And it's just like, it's working out in arithmetic, like a mathematical equation.
Now, you're a Yankees fan, I know. We've talked about
Yeah.
that. Some of your Yankee art is online. I've looked at it. You know, is there a particular Yankee that you haven't drawn yet that you would love to draw? I mean, I can think of one maybe. I don't know if you've drawn him, but Mickey Mantle, have you ever done anything for him?
I've done him on my own.
Okay.
Like the piece you're seeing here, even though I do stuff for Fanatics and through that
Mhm.
I'm licensed to do stuff for, through them for Major League Baseball. Like that was a piece I did for myself, like, or, on my own, not
Mhm.
through Fanatics. That's not a licensed piece. So to me, I've drawn a lot of Yankees.
Yeah.
I don't want to say off the grid, but, for myself or for family or for commissions and stuff like that. But, as far as an official capacity, there are a ton of Yankees that I'd love to do a licensed piece of. Like my favorite Yankee of all time is Andy Pettitte. I've drawn him a lot, but I would love to draw Andy Pettitte. There you go, Bernie. So that those are all part of my series. I call them the Monumentals, and it's all the people basically that have their numbers retired and are in Monument Park. I think I didn't do everybody, but I did like Jeter, Rivera. Yeah. I even have a couple of my Jeter pieces signed, but
Nice.
I mean, it's tough to think of like who I'd want to just draw because I've drawn so many of them. What's funny though, now that I'm saying it, I've never actually fully drawn, I don't think, Elston Howard, and he's one of my favorite Yankees.
Huh.
Just because of
This
what
might be one of my favorite right here.
It's a mix of two of the things I love.
Yeah.
It's right up my alley. My calling card was always like including things that are associated with the player, but not necessarily the first thing you think of all the time, or anytime I could throw in something. So CC Sabathia has got a grapefruit because, for those who may not know, he learned how to pitch by throwing grapefruits in his grandmother's backyard. And his documentary is called, I think, like Under the Grapefruit Tree. And I met him. He's got a few of my pieces, and I even got that one signed with like, what did it say? From grapefruits to greatness. I think I got him to write on it. And he's another guy that I just look up to as a human being and what he's overcome in his life. And I've gotten to meet him a few times, and so. But yeah, I mean,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
How did you come to draw the Jim Edmonds piece that we saw? Me and Spurge were looking at it.
I've always liked him. My dad has always liked him. I think he's a vastly underrated player. Obviously, he's one of the best defensive outfielders of all time. I think him and Andrew Jones are like, Andrew Jones is like 1A and he's like maybe 1B. But a lot of the times I was drawing stuff, and still to some extent, it's because I'm going to be meeting them or somebody's going to be seeing them. And I'm like, oh, I'd love to get a piece signed. So I'll draw it. So I did that one, and then I did like another one. And that was, what is the year? I think 2018 maybe, or something on there. So yeah, I did.
This one's on your website.
Yeah,
I got this one from your website.
Yeah, I think that's like 2018, and you can kind of see my stuff's evolved too since then. Like the basic format of like doing a lot of hatching and cross hatching is there, but so yeah, it's either like I do it for somebody because they commission me, or I do it because something's going on, like they reached in the milestone, or because I'm gonna meet them and I want to give them something, or I want to get something signed.
I'm glad you say evolved. I've been doing this kind of thing. Well, actually, me and the good doctor, we've been kind of doing this thing. Started in 2009, and then I kept kind of doing it, and he went a different route. And you're right, it is a constant evolving thing that you do, and putting the work in. Like, did you ever think that your drawings would get to where they are today when you first started? Or like, what was in your mindset? Because when I first started this stuff, I was terrible. And I'm like, am I ever going to get better at this? And then it slowly started to happen. When did you realize it's starting to happen for you, that people were taking notice of you?
Well, to be fair, like I always knew that I had something there with it. I've always had the personality where if I want something out of life, I'm going to find a way to get it. The same gigs that I have now, I had been rejected from years ago. But the thing that separates the people that achieve their dreams from those that don't Or are you going to take the no and be like, oh, well, let me check it off. Never, let me cross it off, never going back down that road. Or are you going to be like, okay, well, let me work on myself, work on my stuff, give it time and reach back out. And that's what you have to do. I mean, I always knew that I was good at drawing. But like everybody else, I know what I am and what I'm not. I'm not the greatest artist in the world, but I don't want to try to be. I just want to try to be the greatest artist that I can be and measure against myself, because too many people in this industry, in any industry, would rather work on putting somebody else down than work on getting themselves to a higher level. And to me, I always say art is subjective, but I don't want, like, you can think I'm a bad artist, but I don't want you to think I'm a bad person. I don't want to give anybody, any idea of that. So to me, I've always believed that if you work hard, you don't take no for an answer, but you take it as a challenge and you're nice to everybody, things will happen. That's like the simplest recipe, because I can't be where I'm at now without people who helped me out. And it's my responsibility now to do that for other people too. And I still feel like I'm treading water. You know what I mean? Like, people look at me and are like, dude, you're doing art for Major League Baseball. You're doing art for the WWE. You have a Topps card. You've done work for Topps. You've been on the Yes Network. You are friends with all these people. It's like, but to me, I'm still going through it, and I'm still always like looking at what can I do? Like, but that's what you have to be. You have to be able to enjoy the moments and every accomplishment, but also be like, okay, but let me keep going. Let me keep the momentum alive. And so, yeah, I mean, I know I kind of answer in a weird.
Well, you sit there and you say you're not a good artist, bro.
No. Well, it's not that. I don't say.
No, hold on.
It's not that I'm not good.
You're not a very good artist, but that's why I'm looking at you kind of cross-eyed, because again, I'm going through all of this and I'm looking at your stuff, bro, and just the realism.
Well, so that is I don't want to take full credit for that. That was a collaboration with me and somebody else.
It doesn't matter. So, your name is on there, man.
No, I know, but that the bottom Mattingly is more somebody else than it is me.
Just the way that some of this looks, dude. I mean, bro, that's some good work, man. That's some very good work right there.
But I like your the way you think about yourself, and you realize that for me, as a writer, I tell people all the time, I know I'm a good writer. I don't want to sound cocky, but there's not many journalists that have the experience I have and that have met presidents and done all this stuff, and it's cool, but to me, I'm not there yet. I've been in the game for 21 years.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet because I'm not making a living off of it, right? All the way. When I can finally say I can support myself doing this full time and not have to teach, then I know I've achieved my goal, because that's my ultimate goal, And so I think the way you say it is great, and I welcome criticism. I will take criticism from anybody if they're educated with their criticism, not just somebody, because you get, and that's what I hate about social media, man.
100%.
You get these people that want to talk shit and just run people down because they're behind a keyboard and they hate their life, so they want to make everybody else miserable. That stuff I don't tolerate. But if another writer comes to me, if a sports journalist that I respect comes to me, or an entertainment journalist comes to me and says, hey, I didn't like how you did this, or hey, you need to change this, then I welcome it. And I'm not going to get mad. I'm going to listen. And I think that's the problem with a lot of young, I see that with my students, a lot of young people today who have the talent, they squander it because they can't take the criticism. And they can't take criticism, and they don't have long-term goals. Long-term goals are the big, that's another big thing.
Well, it's all how bad do you want it? Do you want it bad enough that you're going to keep fighting for it, even when it looks like the answer is going to be no? Like, I've put in the work. I'm 38, so I'm not old, but I'm also not like 20 years old. I've been doing, I graduated art school when I was 20, so I've been freelancing for like 18 years. But what I was going to say is, like, yes, I do think I'm a good artist, but I know what I am and I know what I'm not. I'm going to be the worst critic, like, of myself. I could do a piece and people could go, oh my God, it looks good. But if I did one thing that I didn't like in that piece, that's the thing I see. You know what I mean? So I try to be humble.
I get what you're saying. I mean, like I said, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, the guy said you're saying he's not any good, but I'm looking at it going, Jesus, I mean, this
No.
is some good
Yeah.
stuff to me, you
I
know?
appreciate that. Like, no,
Yeah.
I think I'm definitely good. Like, but you know, like anybody, and I think people that come off arrogant and like their shit doesn't stink. The
Right.
difference between me and them is like I admit and I'm open about how I feel about myself and whatever shortcomings I have, whereas they're trying to mask it. Like
Right.
I just wanna learn, I just want to grow. You cannot be in this field, and especially like you said, in the day and age of social media and have thin skin. I've seen some terrible things said about some of the things I've done in the past art wise, and with people not knowing that I'm in the group. And thank God I've learned I'm here to post stuff and take any positivity and put positive stuff out there. I'm not going to get in arguments or try to waste time. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and everything I've done has not always been a winner. But again, I'm the hardest on myself, but I'm always looking at what can I do moving forward. So I can say 100%, I am so proud of the work that I've done so far for the WWE in these first 4 pieces. It means more to me than anything in the world doing this. I still cry about it regularly. I still, when I'm walking by and I'm looking at my stuff, I'm like, this is nuts. And I'm going to keep trying to kill it, as we move forward, getting the opportunity to work on more big names that, I could only dream of it's one thing for me to draw them here and have fun and post them on social media and people like them. But to know that this is something that the WWE has passed on, they've endorsed, it's through them, the wrestlers see that. Like, to me, it's like, are you kidding me? Like, and I'm not just saying that. I am like a wrestling savant. Like if I took I'm a smart guy, but if I took all the WWF, WWE knowledge from me growing up till now and removed it from my brain and put something useful, like we'd be on a different podcast. I'd be talking with Neil deGrasse Tyson or something like that.
Well, it's funny that you say that because this is for the love of the show. This is actually part 1 because I've decided if you have time, Maz, we're going to extend this into a part 2 because we haven't even touched the WWE stuff.
I told you, man. Once I get talking, it's tough, man. I apologize. It's just I'm passionate about this stuff, and the fact that anyone wants to listen is crazy. So
right, Maz, give everybody where they can find you so tell everybody where they can find your stuff.
Sure. So again, as far as my licensed artwork, if you go on fanatics.com and you type in MAZ, you'll see my stuff. If you go to www.shop.com and type in MAZ, you'll see my WWE stuff. As far as social media goes, you can find me on Facebook. I'm very approachable. I like to talk to people. Maz Adams. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Maz Adams Art. And every now and again, I'll post up a TikTok, which you can also find as Maz Adams Art.
Right on.
With that being said, we will be back with part 2. Welcome back to For Love of the Show. I am one of your hosts, Dirty, the man sitting next to me, the man who inspired this, the author of For the Love of the Show, the one and the only.
The Good Doctor.
And right below us is an official WWE artist, the one and the only. You can find him on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. Maz Adams, the one and only. Sir,
hey guys,
how are you?
I'm doing amazing. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. Now look, we did the show. We talked about your baseball and your football and your stuff like that. But the Good Doctor's book's about wrestling. We have 3 huge wrestling nerds. I'm the oldest. I'm 48. The Good Doctor's a few years behind me. You're a baby
42.
compared to me, only 38.
When I get off the seat and I can barely walk, we'll see about that.
That's how
I won't be able to walk either after
today's podcast is brought to you by the letter C. Trust me, I'm gonna be bent over, man.
Right, exactly. So let's get to it. You are an official licensed artist of the WWE. Explain to us what the official licensed artist of the WWE means.
It means that the WWE through Fanatics, because I mainly freelance for Fanatics. I'm a freelance artist. I'm not on staff. That they have requested that I draw certain wrestlers. It all goes through the WWE. They're the ones that ultimately approve it, and then Fanatics manufactures it. And so they post it up on WWE Shop. So everything that is being sold by them of mine is fully licensed. It's not bootleg. You're not going to find it on a street corner, hopefully. It's just, there was a gentleman before doing stuff similar in terms of doing art, Rob Schamberger, and he had been with the company for like 10 years. And so, I give him credit and for even making this a thing. I mean, obviously art and wrestling have gone together for a long time, but it was really a different thing when he was working with the WWE. And, I realized that I'm fortunate to be in this position because of people like him. And I sent him a message and thanked him. And, and he was happy for me too, which was nice. But, I just try to enjoy everything while it lasts because nothing is guaranteed. I've learned that, at an early age. But yeah, it's all about that sticker on my art and the copyright, saying this is official merchandise. It's just like, even when you introduced me as officially licensed WWE artist, I'm like, who's like, it's just nuts, man. I can't say it enough. It's like one of my biggest dreams come true, honestly.
So how as a media person myself, I can tell you, I know how difficult it can be to crack the nut and get in with the WWE on a good standing. They are selective with who they allow to cover them and things like that. And it took me a little while, like you were talking last episode about getting rejected. I have been rejected by them, and but I came back, and I've been working with them, covering them for probably about 7 years now, and it's probably one of my favorite accomplishments. So how did you, being with Fanatics, when were you contacted? Were you contacted by WWE? Did you reach out to them? How did all this work?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we talked about before was lucky versus fortunate. And this is the part of the story where that fortunate and it leans towards lucky. Like I had said before, I'm a guy that if I want something professionally, I'm going to find an in. I'm going to find a way. If you block this door, I'm going to find a back entrance somewhere, because that's the mentality that you have to have. You can't give up. You have to be like, I'm going to find a way. I had tried, and I wasn't getting anywhere. And then, Fanatics happened. We were doing Major League Baseball, which again is a dream of mine. And again, I was like super emotional over that too, because it's baseball and wrestling. But while I was trying to find other ways to get in and was working on some things, I found out that Fanatics had gotten the rights to WWE to produce their merchandise. So I told my art director, like what I'm telling you guys, I love baseball. This has been an incredible ride. I'm so grateful for it. But even before Major League Baseball was wrestling. And if there's ever any way that I could be considered, if we end up doing any kind of art, please consider me. And it took a while for things to come together. There's a lot of logistical behind the scenes things, since it's, two companies working together. It looked like it was going to happen, and it wasn't going to happen. And so I didn't know, like, but again, my art director, God bless him, he had sent my work to them. They were interested, and so he said it's happening. And so I've known about it for a while. I had to keep it hush hush while I was working on stuff, which I wanted to explode because I was like a pig in shit. I was the happiest person in the world. I still am, just beaming over it. And so things all kind of just work together magically. And I couldn't ask for anything better or greater. I'm legitimately, it's not bullshit when I say like, this is the world to me. And I'm genuinely a fan. Like I go, and I just went 2 weeks ago. Like whenever they're here, I pay like everybody else, and I go and I'm a fan. And
oh, dude, you shouldn't have to pay. Come on.
No.
Come on now.
I
can hook you up with the name to take care of that right now.
No, like I do everything I do, and I'm sure we'll get into the photos too. But like even that, people are always like, "Oh, damn, how'd you get a photo pass?" I'm like, I didn't. I shot them.
I don't know how they let you in without a photo pass. To be honest, man, they are strict on that.
I don't know. There's my Ray.
Burge, put out some of those photos.
I will, but this is the one thing I'm going to talk to him about. We're talking about his Fanatic series right here, and we see it right here. We had talked earlier in the episode before, and actually before that, I was talking about how well this was drawn. Explain to people how hard it is to actually draw a female.
Well,
explain to people how hard it is to draw that,
Yeah.
to capture their beauty and all of that. Because you see some of these, drawings like this of women where they're over accentuated in certain areas. But explain how hard it is to actually draw a woman.
Yeah, I mean, in general, if it's just a woman in general, beautiful women and beautiful people, even men that are attractive, they have perfect proportions. They have, you know, they're symmetrical. So everything has to be on point. You add on top of that a likeness, right? So now I'm drawing somebody that everybody knows, and Rhea Ripley is a beautiful woman. And then what's the audience? I have to cater to, there's people like us that are old school fans, even older than me, older than you guys. But then there's a lot of kids. So I have to draw something that's tasteful, still looks like the person. Obviously there's a level of, I mean, that's, it's a nice outfit. She's a beautiful woman, but she's a badass. And so I want to kind of treat it gently, but also have that rough edge to it. And that's kind of where I also got the idea for like making the logo look like, like it was like metal, and you got the sparks flying, and just like also the Judgment Day kind of thing. Like I talked about earlier, I try to think of things that I associate with that person, and being a fan, and it's the same with photography, being a fan and knowing the subject makes you be able to do things. But yeah, and I also just like the juxtaposition of like, she's got a very like a paler skin, and then you've got the very intense background, but you just got to treat it carefully. And I think I did good with it. Like, you got to be gentle on the face. I do a lot of hatching. So, when it's a younger person, or if you want to like a beautiful woman or just anybody attractive, you want to go easier on the face. I tried to get like the reference is a big part too. So I want to get a reference that's not necessarily like her face obscured in shadow. I want to show she's got beautiful eyes, stuff like that. So you want to capture the person, but find this kind of nice middle ground.
Well, it even looks like her, I mean, the top part of her outfit, it even looks like it's actually leather. So like the detail that you have in this, I mean, it literally looks like you took a piece of leather and just put it right there.
Thank
like
you.
The detail into that, like, explain how to make it look like actual leather when you're doing it, to make it look like that.
Just knowing how to handle the lines. It's like doing hair, you have to learn which direction hair goes, what point it comes from. So there's like little simple things. And a lot of it is also in the coloring. Like, it may not look like leather when it was just the line work, but once I start doing the coloring, it's how you handle it. And I think another hard thing was like the shadows and knowing which lines to pick, because she's a strong woman. She's got muscles. So it's like there's a little bit of kind of everything in her. And for that reason, it was a challenge. But I don't want to shy away from challenges. I mean, she's one of the most over, her career, like over superstars. Her career has been on an upward trajectory. She's gotten to the point where she's like in that Stone Cold territory of like, yeah, she's a bad guy, but because she's so cool, everybody loves her. And now she's definitely, coming back as a face. But, it's just like, I don't know. It's to handle the leather, you just got to try your best. I try not to overwork it, because I also don't want it to look out of place versus the rest of the piece.
Sure. Right, yeah. And you could go to www.shop.com, type in MAZ, and you could find all of his pieces. He's got them on there for sale, so go there. Now, Good Doctor, you said you wanted to get to some of his pictures, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first picture, MAZ, great. I want to ask you, I hope the Good Doctor is okay.
Oh.
When I put this picture up,
I hope these are the recent ones with my nice camera that I know.
Well, I mean, he might have a heart attack. These are the pictures that he sent me.
Okay, so hopefully if I send them to him, they're
so he might have a heart attack when I put this picture up. So, Maz, I'm just letting you know right now. I think I know what there it is.
Oh, yeah. That was Mania.
See?
Yeah. Look, the final boss.
That's my guy,
the
man.
Final boss.
Yeah. So,
all right, Good Doctor, go. You wanted pictures, so there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot. I mean, so you literally walk through the turnstile with your camera.
So surprising. So technically, they say no video recording devices, which everybody has a phone. I don't go for video. I can watch it at home on a much better camera than what they have. I want to capture the moments from my point of view. My camera technically the one I used is a point and shoot. The lens didn't come off. It's an expensive point and shoot. It's a very expensive point and shoot, but it's got a stuck. The lens will not come off. It's got a 1-inch sensor. It's not a DSLR. So I followed the rules. Now that being said, they did not stop anybody to look. They did not make me take my camera out. They did not make me take my bag off. I probably could have brought my DSLR, but even if I could, this camera I'm in love with so much that I'm not even using my DSLR. I'm just using this.
This is the point and shoot camera.
It's a nice point and shoot camera. And again, people will ask me like, well, what do you shoot with? Like thinking that if I tell them what camera I use, that they're going to get this quality of pictures.
No,
I understand what I'm doing. Like I've just like with the art, I've worked my ass off to, like you said, you were doing this for how long?
I've been shooting photos at their events for probably 5-6 years now.
How long do you think I've been doing this?
Well, you told me.
Yeah. I started in like 2019, like with a point and shoot. I went online. I watched YouTube videos. I went out in the field, did everything I could. I busted my ass to learn it. This was night 1 of Mania too.
My God, man.
The funny thing was, so I purposely got 2 different seats. So night 1, I bought 1 seat, so I get 1 view. Night 2, I wanted another view because, again, knowing your subject, and I don't know if you guys can see his elbow pad up there. It's floating in the air on the left of the screen by the top rope.
Yeah.
So for those, I don't want to get too technical, but shooting wrestling without a very expensive lens is very tough because you're dealing with darkness and you're dealing with speed. So you're going to either end up with a blurry shot that's got a lot of what's called high ISO, which means a lot of grain, or a grainy shot rather, or a blurry shot, and you have to kind of pick and choose. This was more recently at a house show in White Plains where I was sitting, I think like the 5th row above the floor. They almost gave me trouble with here at this it's the biggest rinky dink little gymnasium of a place. And they, even though the sign said like, take your camera out, we'll check it, no video, like one person gave me a problem and I went in another way and they're like, yeah, it's fine. Just don't record video. I'm like, okay. Like it literally said no video recording, whatever. Like I'm there to have fun. I'm not trying to make money off of this.
Right.
And then the response on the internet has been like, like more so even than my art, which is crazy, is because art I've been doing my whole life. Drawing, photography is something I've always wanted to do, but I didn't start seriously doing it. But like one of my photos of Cody, like was the first one that we were talking about before.
That's what I saw.
It blew up. And because I stayed away in Philly for Mania, I would come home. I would go back to the hotel, upload as much stuff as I could, unload it onto my computer to clear my memory cards. I try to pull up photos. I'd end up going to sleep for like 3 hours before I had to get up to go to WWE World again and rinse and repeat. So I was like, you know what? I'm posting it in a group. I'm going to trust everybody. I don't have time to put a watermark, whatever. And I was like, yeah, I know they're good, but I didn't think they were like, holy shit. And now the next thing I know, I'm start seeing this one photo everywhere. There you go. I start seeing it friggin' everywhere, dude. That was night 1. And again, with the hard thing is like you can predict certain things. I know which turnbuckle Randy Orton's going to go to when he poses. I know which turnbuckle LA Knight's going to go to. I know where he's going to go. I know when certain moves are coming or opportunities for certain moves. With WrestleMania, you don't know where the pyro is necessarily going to be or when it's going to go off because it doesn't follow the normal rules. So it does take luck that I captured this, but it's also because I was prepared for it when it happened. Like you have to know when to zoom in, when to zoom out. And that's a tough thing to learn, even still now when I'm shooting like baseball, knowing if I'm out or in too much. So,
right.
But it's funny because there's such different things, photography and art and drawing, but yet I find them equally, if not like even photography sometimes can be more rewarding when you're able to get that moment.
That's the photo that I saw.
Yeah.
And I know how I found you. It was on Mania Club on Facebook.
Yep.
And funny story about that, there's been some cool stories from people on Mania Club that I've wanted to use for my next book. And I remember, and you may have seen it, this woman from the UK had posted a photo of her and Edge together. And she had said that she had had cancer a few years back, and Edge sent her his WWE shirt. And then when they were in the UK, Edge actually sought her out and brought her to a show. So I reached out to her, and this guy from Mania Club sends me a message right away threatening to kick me off, saying, you're not allowed to message people who post stuff on here. And I'm like, dude, I'm writing a book. And he's like, well, we have stalkers and weirdos. I'm like, well, some wrestling fans can be a little overbearing,
It's the internet, man. Like,
but so I saw yours and I'm like, oh, screw it. If they yell at me, to hell with them.
How are they gonna know?
Well,
man?
That's it.
She must have said something, or unless
she didn't. I did. She never responded to me at all. I even found her. This is going to sound really stalkerish. I went and found her LinkedIn and messaged her on that. She still didn't respond.
Great. Now I got to mute him. Now I have to mute him, Maz. I have to mute. Now he's talking about being a stalker.
Yeah.
This is For the Love of the Show. We are here. I am Spurge. That's the good doctor, the author of the book For the Love of the Show. You can go find it on Amazon. You can also download our app on Roku and Fire Stick. Follow all our social medias. We're sitting with the official licensed WWE artist, MAZ Adams. Maz, let's get into it. When was it that you got into wrestling? Like, for me, it's that age. When was it that, because see here, I'm going to go way back. I remember watching the old Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah. Territorial, man.
WCCW with the Von Erichs.
Yep.
So when was it that Maz got hooked to wrestling?
So for reference, I was born in '86. So my time to really watch.
Baby.
Yeah. Well, sure. But, when I was really into it, I was probably about 4 years old. I would watch it on Saturdays. And the first guy that really caught my eye, which I'm sure he caught a lot of people's eye, it was not Hulk Hogan, believe it or not. It was the Ultimate Warrior. Dude was looked like a superhero, high energy. So I used to watch it then. But, I like to tell the story. I was probably about 6. And my father came to me when I was playing Nintendo, in my bedroom. And he's like, grab your stuff. We're going out. I'm like, okay. And we lived in Brooklyn. We start driving. I'm like, where are we going? He's like, we're going to a park. I'm like, okay. We passed every park that I knew of. We've been in the car way too long. I look out in the distance and I see Nassau Coliseum, which I knew of because I had family that lived in Long Island. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, oh, we're going to watch the Islanders practice. I'm like, oh, okay. I was never a hockey guy. So he takes me inside and I look and I see WWF vendors, and I look at him and I just remember going, you're taking me to wrestling. And he's like, yeah. And my first thought was I was so excited. I'm finally going to see it live. But then the next thought that came to my head was, oh shit. Because I was deathly afraid of clowns. And this was around when Doink first came in. And I was like, Doink's not going to be here, right? And my dad didn't watch wrestling. It's not one of those stories where he was into it and we watched it together. And no, he just got tickets from my uncle and was like, I know Matt likes this, or Maz likes this. Let's take him. And he's like, no, of course not. Doink's not going to be here. The fucking, excuse my language, second match of the night. I'll never forget it. I jumped up on his lap. He loves telling this story. I'm going to shit my pants. I jumped up on his lap. It was Doink versus Tatanka. And it went to a 15-minute draw. And then I remember Doink asked the ref, can I please have more time? And then he cheated and he won. I remember the main event was Macho Man teaming with The Undertaker to take on Giant Gonzalez and Adam Bomb. I got to see the Steiners, the Head Shrinkers, and Bastion Booger versus 1-2-3 Kid. I'll never forget it. Shawn Michaels was a heel when he was feuding with Razor, and I remember it was for the IC belt. He was with Diesel, and he took it and he ran away. So and from that moment on, I always liked it, but I was hooked. And then my first real guy when I started watching it weekly was the British Bulldog. He's my all-time favorite, and I think also because he was just this larger than life. You watch him do those stalling suplexes, the muscles. I think I got a thing with guys with tassels, I guess. I don't know. But, and I always like the heels. I always like bad guys. I just think it's more fun to be a badass. Sure. So those were probably the first 2 guys. And I just, like I said, it got, its teeth sunk into me, and I've never looked back since.
Now, you talked about, we talked earlier how you started drawing, you started doing this stuff. You said Yoda was always your go-to guy and stuff like that. We talked about your mom passing. You said the Yoda was one of your things. And as I'm going through and I'm looking at stuff while we do this, I remember my very first wrestling match. It was in 1984. And it was it wasn't WCW at the time. It was NWA, and it was Ric Flair versus Sting.
Nice.
And I remember it was at the old Checker Dome. And I remember seeing that. So that was the main event and all of that. But one of my favorite guys of all time, and I mean, in my opinion, he is the GOAT of wrestling and all of that for the WWE, is this man right here, The Undertaker.
Oh yeah.
Like everything that you've done in this, like, what is something like that take right there to like draw that up? Like, what goes through your head when you want to do something like that?
So this was done shortly after that Bray piece that I did, where I said it was like the Neon series. So again, it's looking for the right reference. I wanted a piece that I felt like was very Undertaker-ish and had good lighting to use. And I also felt like if I'm going to use bright colors, like, so you just got to find what's going to fit what you're trying to get out of it. Again, neon pink isn't really Undertaker, but for some reason it works with the lighting. And, one of the tricks you learn is that you should bring some of the background color into the person as far as lighting. So the idea that maybe there's this purplish, pinkish light in the background and it's reflecting off of his face. So I wanted to do something very simple because a lot of my pieces have like multiple poses and elements and this and that. But for this series, I just wanted simple, something that sums up the person, has bright, vivid colors. And so for me, it was like kind of like him making his entrance out through the smoke and just looking to the crowd or looking to whoever, is in the ring.
You say lighting. And as you say it, I'm like, holy shit, it does look like it's lighting. There's a light behind this picture. For me, when I see somebody that can draw very well, it amazes me. So like, well, how do you get it to where you see where it makes it look like it's a light behind him?
It's honestly tough. It's something I still struggle with because the thing that is true with it is if it looks natural, you don't notice it. And that's how do you pick it apart if you don't even notice it? And it's something I still learn and I still struggle with. Sometimes I'll put the light, you have a light source. You have to imagine where the source is. So even technically with this, it doesn't really follow 100% the light source because you'd think, all right, well, under the brim of his hat, he really shouldn't be lit up, but his head's kind of tilted back so the light would get there. So it's just learning the anatomy of the face, the bone structure. And then even sometimes if like you're using reference and maybe the lighting is on the reference, sometimes things don't translate and you do it that way and you're like, it doesn't look right. So that's why certain things I'll use the reference for and other things I'll be like, this is me doing this. But it's just a matter of like doing it over and over again. And then like just, learning from it and growing.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I'm just sitting here looking at it going, Jesus, this is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't look right. Like I'll do it and I'll be like, this should be where the light is. And it's just like, and I'll abandon it or I'll change it. So
I have to ask you about this. Doctor, you ready for this? This is one of our favorite guys, but he is being so misunderused right now. Karrion Kross and Scarlett.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. So
explain, because I'm just going through and I'm looking at it because you're saying this is part of your Beyond the Mat series. Like what
yeah, so the fun thing about that was this was obviously before I was working for the WWE. This was when they were free agents after they had been released. They were doing a lot of different autograph signings, and I've worked with a lot of different companies and promoters that want to, me to do pieces for them. So one of my friends does a lot of signings. She's friendly with both of them, and they're both amazing people. They're like the nicest, absolutely nicest, sweetest people, most down to earth. But they wanted me to do a piece for a signing with both of them. So again, I try to find elements, and I know that in this, this costume, it's Scarlett's doing, it's like her Michelle Pfeiffer Batman Returns Catwoman. So to me, one of the most iconic parts of Batman Returns with Catwoman is she has the hello there sign. And the night she turns into Catwoman, she trashes her apartment and she breaks it so that when it lights up, instead of saying hello there, it says hell here. So because of Scarlett, you could see she's wearing with the claws, like it's that whole motif. So I did that. I wanted to go all red with it because during their entrance, in NXT, there was a lot of red lighting, and then the whole Doomsday theme, the TikTok, I thought of like Terminator almost, where there's like a, Terminator 2, where it starts with like a pile of skulls. So I'm like, it would be cool to do that. So it's like all these little elements that I feel like kind of generally touch on who they are and their personalities. And I have a funny photo of them from the signing where they're holding up one that they signed to me, and like Carrion's making a face like he looks like he's pissed as shit, and she's smiling because he was just hamming it up. But he's like, I agree with you. I think they're both great talents, and they're more importantly, they're great people. So I always root for them, and it was fun to do that. And then right after that, that was, I think, their last signing. They had known already that they were signed back to WWE. They couldn't say anything, I think. And so, but they're like, I think we're going to do this, and then we can't do anything else. So, which I was happy for them. That's awesome. So anytime anybody wants to, I've done stuff like that for Bret Hart signing, Kurt Angle signing. It's always super, Kevin Nash signing. It's always super cool for me to be asked to do that stuff.
No. Right on.
Good doctor, you got a question? Because I have another one.
Go ahead.
Oh, so you say we talked earlier about how you got into with the WWE, and I actually think I might have found the piece that you're talking about, because you said there was it was something. But if I'm not mistaken, this guy right here might be one of your favorite wrestlers, right?
Yeah,
now.
Yeah, I mean, I got to see Bobby when he first came up. I love his story. MVP again.
St. Louis guy, a Missouri guy.
Yeah.
He's been around. Yeah, he moved around, military guy. All of them. I mean, Shelton Benjamin. I loved Shelton Benjamin when he first came up. I mean, again, you want to talk about underutilized, or just he'll always be on the list of like the most talented guys.
Yeah.
His initial run when he beat Triple H, like multiple times in a row, and I used to love his T-bone suplex and the dragon kick and all that stuff. So to me, that group was on fire, and it will always haunt me personally that they didn't stay together longer.
Right?
They were perfect. They were on such a roll, and it was just the plug was pulled too soon. But again, knowing at least two of them, what great humans, and they're such family men, and so yeah, that was a fun one to do, and to have them recognize that, and yeah, so they'll always be special to me, and those guys will always be special to me.
Well, it's funny because we met MVP here in St. Louis.
Yeah.
One of the nicest guys in the world. We were doing, was it the Bellator event, or was it?
Yeah, we were at a Bellator event.
We were at a Bellator event, and I was doing pictures for this guy because up against the cage, and I just happened to turn around and there's MVP, and I was like, oh, it's MVP, and he's like, what's up, dude? So I talked to him. So, but what is it like when you actually get to meet these guys? Like, what is it like when you get to meet one of these guys?
I mean, it's always surreal, but I mean, at the end of the day, they're human beings. So I try not to just be like the guy asking a million wrestling questions. I mean, they just want to be treated like, I mean, some of them don't mind like talking about it, and but it's very cool, and it's humbling, and it's different, like being a kid and seeing things like, even when you're a kid with your parents, they're on the pedestal and they're these perfect humans. And then as you grow up, you learn just like them, nothing is perfect. We're all human. And it's the same with wrestlers. They all have their own families and lives. And I have so much respect for them, because yes, they did choose this life. But I mean, even if you take away the performing, the fact that they are traveling multiple times a week in an airplane, in a car, driving, like that in itself is exhausting. Like that takes a toll on you. And then they're going out there and they're bumping every night, and there's no off season. They say that because it's true. So it's a tough life, and and then the expenses they incur and stuff like that. So I think the important thing is, like, I just always tell them how much I respect what they do. And like I'll always be a little kid inside, like, when I meet them, and but it's just cool to be able to see them as human beings. And but yeah, there's very few times where I'm like starstruck per se. I've been very blessed to meet a lot of, famous people, whether it's baseball or actors, or like, it's been very cool. Like my wife will always joke, and I'll be like, oh yeah, this guy, we met him. And she's like, I meet a lot of people. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's one of those things, like even with this, like it never hits home. Like it'll never actually fully get inside my brain that like I talk to this person, or I know this person, but it's something I'm grateful for, because time is limited. I'm a busy dude, and I'm not a WWE superstar. Like I go nonstop, and time is the greatest gift that we can give somebody, because there's no getting it back. So anytime any of these people spend time talking to me or make time for me, it's the greatest compliment you could ask for.
Yeah, You're exactly right. And, you know, one thing I get asked all the time is, you know, who are the nicest athletes that I've met? And, you know, I can honestly say that it's MMA and WWE fighters, you know, WWE athletes, MMA fighters. And people look at me like, what? An MMA guy is like nice? I'm like, you have no idea how down to earth these guys are. And most of the wrestlers are the same way, you know, from Kurt Angle to, you know, whoever that uh, they're always, it's like,
Yeah.
they're so grateful that they're able to do what they enjoy, because they wouldn't be in this business if they didn't enjoy doing it. I mean, to be a wrestler, you have to love what you do, because it's not an easy life, like you said. I mean,
No.
you know, I think about Randy Orton all the time.
Yeah.
We just, you know, he was just in St. Louis inducting his dad into the Wrestling Hall of Fame here, and you know, he was talking about how the doctors told him he should retire, and he don't need the money. He does it because he loves it. And he, to see his evolution, I hate to say evolution since that was his group, but to see the evolution of Randy Orton from when he first came out and the way he carried himself, and to see him now as a family man, and just to be down to earth, and to be one of them guys that he has taken over that leadership role in that locker room to work with these young guys. It is, you know, to me, he is one of the top guys in the business all time. I mean, there ain't many guys that can hang with Randy Orton. You know, from his mic work to just the psychological aspect of his game is better than anybody else. And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, if you don't watch anything else with Orton, watch his face, the faces that he makes, the way he carries himself in the ring. He tells a whole story just in that aspect. And you know, it's things like that that I respect about these guys. It's the extra mile they go, because he don't have to do that. You know, he could be just fine going in and doing his, you know, his moves and leaving. But you know, so that's the thing I respect about a lot of these guys, is just the time that they put in with the fans, especially Cody. I mean, right now Cody's the top guy, and I hope to get to interview him one day. He's one of the rare ones I have not got to interview yet. I missed out on a chance to, but hopefully at SummerSlam I'll get to, because he's on my bucket list. The one of the guys I got to talk to, just because I think the world of him. You know, him and Randy. I mean, I was supposed to talk to Randy in Toronto a few years ago, and my passport was expired. I didn't realize it, so I couldn't go. My buddy was there, and Orton and his wife literally FaceTimed me from
No, it's
Toronto,
awesome.
because they knew I was from,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, St. Louis area, and they talked to me, and I'm like, they didn't have to do that. I mean, he's got a line of 200 people deep to sign and take photos with, and he took time just to say hello. So, you know, it's things like that that I think are really cool when you meet some of these guys, and it's stories like that that, you know, are rare, and not everyone gets to experience that. So that's a cool part of, you know, doing this.
Yeah, I think it's ironic you were talking about his evolution and then his legacy.
Yeah.
You can't, if you can do an RK Bro, I'll be shocked if you could work that in there. So, but
Yeah, I don't know.
I like, people will ask me like, has there ever been anybody you met where you're like been starstruck wrestling wise? And the list is very short, and I think the list might just be him, because
Really?
because again, you know, he started when I was pretty much in high school, but
Yeah.
still I got to grow up and watch him go from that, you know, arrogant, you know, punk kid, the
Yep.
RNN updates or whatever it was with his shoulder, and go from the terrible music and all that stuff. There you go. To maturing, and you know, his first title run where he wasn't quite ready yet, and just to seeing where he's at now, and now to get to see him. You know, I was at SmackDown a few weeks ago, and just the fun that he's having with the crowd, and he's enjoying the heck out of it.
Yeah.
It's like a totally different person. And like you said, he is one of the greatest performers of all time, and he gets it. It is in his blood. And, you know, I mean, he is one of the greats. You know, I always prefer heel Orton just because he can be such a son of a gun.
Yes.
But I mean, he deserves all the love and the flowers. And yeah, I mean, my favorite photo I've taken was from that SmackDown. I don't know if I have it or if I sent it to you. It's the one of him posing where there's like a lens flare. Because when I got those tickets, I was like, the one photo I want is him doing his corner pose.
Yeah.
And I looked out that the light was directly behind him, and
Hold
it
on,
created
I
this
think
beautiful lens flare. And it's like from behind him. I don't know if you'll see it. Like you really don't see his face.
I got so many pictures I'm
I know,
going
man.
through.
It's literally him doing the pose, and you'll see like
I
turquoise.
think you might be talking this one right here.
Let's see. Yeah, that's my favorite. That's my favorite.
That's sick,
People
man.
think I messed with that. I did not mess with that. I mean,
No.
just the usual, like maybe darkening one area or something. But that light and that lens flare and that color, when I saw it, you know, I was like, but you never know until you go and you upload it because, you know, you're looking on a little screen, maybe it's out of focus. But when I got that shot, I was like, even looking at it now, I feel like I'm in love. Like, you want to talk about something I'm so proud of? Yes, I didn't make that. I didn't make him pose like that. But again, that was what I went for. That is what I was prepared for. I was going to get that shot, and I couldn't have had, like, I have other versions of that, like further out. It's just something about that compositionally, the lighting. It's so beautiful. Like, I am in ways I'm more confident about my photography than I am even about my art, and I think it's just because I'm so proud of myself. But I mean that's one of the shots of my life, you know, like that pose. That's just, there are certain things in wrestling that evoke emotion and that really get you excited. And it's so silly. People that aren't wrestling fans would be like, who the frig cares? The guy's throwing his hand, oh, big shit. But it's like, no, that's so many good memories. That's
iconic.
I was at WrestleMania 20. I was there for his first WrestleMania. I was at 40 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm getting old now too. But it's just, there's what it does to you. It makes you a kid. I'm looking at that.
Yes.
It makes me go through my whole life backwards.
Yes. And, you know, you mentioned starstruck, and I'm the same way. There's not much that I would be starstruck. You know, not many athletes.
Easy there, big guy.
Probably Rock. You know, definitely Rock I'd be starstruck around. But, you know, I tell the story in my book that when we went to SummerSlam 22 in Nashville, they were up in the seats, and I had my media pass, and they were bringing me down to the field to shoot, and they took me through a back way, and I'm texting these fools while I'm walking through. I'm like, oh, I see this guy, you know, and I look over to my right, and it's The Undertaker.
Wow.
And I'm just like, part of me wanted to pull out my phone and snap a photo, but I'm like, no, I'm professional. Part of me wanted to tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, can I get a selfie? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even know what to say to him.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I mean, he
Thank
was 2-3 feet away, you know, and just to see him be that close to him. And then, you know, in Detroit last year at SummerSlam, I was shooting again on the floor, and they did a spot where Reigns puts Uso through a table on the floor.
Yeah.
You can literally see me right behind them shooting because the spot was literally a foot in front of me. And I saw them preparing it the whole time and all that. And I'm like, so I'm texting these guys. I'm like, there's going to be a huge spot on the floor during the Reigns match. Get ready. And then I came home that night, and literally you can see me clear as day just snapping away. So, yeah, man, it's like I just enjoy it. And like you said, it makes you feel like a kid again. You know, I'm 42 years old, and I tell people, you know, people will be like, you have a PhD. Why are you watching wrestling? You know, and I'm like, because for those 2 or 3 hours, I'm not worried about anything.
Exactly.
You know, it's that's all I'm focused on. I don't worry about the card payment, the house payment, the pain in the ass at work. It's just I'm having a good time, and you know, a lot of people don't understand that.
Now, Bess, don't let him lie to you. Don't let him lie to you that he doesn't get starstruck, right? WrestleMania 30. We had to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning to go see this clown. 6 a.m. in the morning to go see this dude.
Yep.
So don't let him lie to you that he doesn't get starstruck, because he does. Right there. He's like, the Hogan. What is the craziest thing? Because this might be the craziest thing that I've ever had to do in a wrestling trip, is get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go see somebody I don't even like in Hulk Hogan. What is the craziest thing you ever had to do that you did as a wrestling fan before you started doing the pictures and all that with the WWE?
Just probably backyard wrestling growing up, like stupid shit, like just
Yeah.
dumb,
I'm
like.
talking about meeting a wrestler.
Oh.
What's the
Well, I
craziest
mean, that's
thing you've ever
wrestling.
done? We've all done backyard wrestling. That's not crazy. We've all done that.
You know.
See, to me, meeting Hogan wasn't crazy at all.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Getting up at 6 a.m. It was crazy. Shut up.
I mean,
It was.
it's not crazy in the sense, but I just think biting off more than I can chew was just this last trip to Mania. Cause like, as I referenced, I was going nonstop at all. I was going nonstop on no sleep, you know, and, I ended up like getting chest pains. I almost went to the hospital during it. I almost missed WrestleMania. Like I was just stressed out. Like I was by myself, which is fine. You know, my wife was like more concerned for me, and I really didn't tell her everything that had happened, but it was just like, I wanted to make the most of the trip. I bit off more than I could chew, I think. Just trying to think in terms of like other crazy stuff.
Like, what's the craziest thing that you did to meet a wrestler as a fan?
You don't even have to be a wrestler. It could be an athlete.
Yeah, actor, baseball player, whatever.
I've never done anything like super crazy. I mean, I've had crazy experiences where they're surreal.
Well, there you go. Craziest experience you ever had.
I mean, I've been in like locker rooms of like Major League Baseball teams where the players are in the locker room standing next to me, and I'm like, holy shit. And what you're saying about being professional, like, of course, I'd love to be like, hey, can I get a photo with you? Say hello. But it's like the opportunity to be in this situation is worth more than taking advantage of the situation, because it only takes one time to cross that line. And I always have to be a professional first. If I'm, I've been lucky enough to make friends with people in the Mets organization that, I go shoot Mets games. And like some of that stuff is crazy, the access I have. And even I'm like so reserved. They're like, dude, go on the field, get the shot. Like, you don't have to stand right here. And I'm like, I don't want to do anything wrong. You know what I mean? Every time I go, I get a little bit more relaxed. Like, I've used the bathroom in the Mets media room, which as a Yankee fan, not always number ones. Oh, so here's a cool wrestling story. Here we go, wrestling baseball story.
I knew
Here
something was going to come out.
One of the games I got to shoot because of my buddy from the Mets was when Bartolo Colon officially retired last season. I got to be on the field behind home plate getting his first pitch, like shots of it. Before he went out to do the pitch, I got a selfie with him real quick. I got to be in the media room for that during his press conference. I got to take photos during that. The cool thing was before the game, I was standing on the field, and in the corner of my eye, I see something like shimmering, and I turn around, and it's MJF with the AEW title just standing there. And I'm like, nobody knew who he was but me. And I went up to him, and I was like, hey, man, I didn't ask for a photo. I didn't ask for an autograph because, again, professional. I just said, hey, man, it's so nice to meet you. And he's like, you too, buddy. Thanks. And he was
That's what you got? That's what you got?
It was when he just turned face, like ish.
No, see.
So, yeah.
It's funny because I'm sitting here making fun of him that we had to get up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
to go meet Hulk Hogan.
I have photos of him too, holding the belt, like professional. I'll show you guys. Like they're beautiful shots, but I didn't expect to see a wrestler there. But,
MJF right now is my favorite wrestler. I don't care if he's heel, face, whatever. Yeah. So we're at the very first StarCast for All Out.
At the very first All Out, yeah.
Nice.
Is it All Out?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
We were there, so we were in.
I'm a WWE guy. I honestly know. No.
Me too.
Yeah,
well, we're walking through StarCast, and I see this guy, and I go, "Oh my God, it's MJF!" And I tell the doctor, because I listen to Busted Open Radio a lot.
I didn't know who he was.
I go, "Bro, it's that guy MJF I was telling you about." He's like, "What?" I go, "Michael Jacob Freeman, the kid who's like the big heel right now." He's like, "Okay." I turn around, I run back to him. I'm like, "MJF, I'm a huge fan." He goes, "F you, Mark," and just keeps walking.
Yeah, character, man.
And I was like, yes, I just got told to be effed off by MJF. So that's probably the craziest thing that I've ever done.
I think if he was still a heel at the time, he probably would have said that to me. I don't know. I mean, I was media.
I don't know.
I had a Mets media pass. But no, look, hey, like, I'm never going to hate on another company. Obviously, they have guys that I like. And, it's the sport, the show that I love. My allegiance is always going to be to WWE. That's what I grew up watching. That's what I love.
Yeah.
But I know how immensely talented he is. He's how much he's grown even in the past few years. I mean, he's must-watch TV. Like, even if you don't watch the product AEW, you got to watch those highlights because he's always great. I mean, I prefer him as a straight-up heel,
Yes.
I know right now he's kind of tweening, but he's still kind of face-ish. But yeah, I mean, talent is talent, right? I mean, if it's good for everybody, so it was a cool surprise. I mean, I didn't expect to see any wrestler there. So
Well,
you mentioned the craziest story. So when I covered the Rams when they were still in St. Louis, I would have to go in the locker room after the games. And to go in an NFL locker room is a bit intimidating. I mean, I'll admit it's not the most comfortable place to be at after a game, and
depends what you like. I guess.
yeah.
Not some people it's the best place to be.
I guess,
God bless them,
yeah.
but I got you.
So, this particular week, the Raiders were in town, and for some reason, the Rams beat them. The Rams were terrible back then, but they wound up beating them. And so I got to go in the Raiders locker room at the end of the game, and I had just gotten my Chiefs tattoo on my forearm here. And I'm wearing a short sleeve polo, and I walk in. As soon as I walk in the door, this big 350-pound O lineman sees me, and he's about 6'6", 350. And he goes, "Hey, this son of a bitch has a Chiefs tattoo. F this mother effer." And all these guys are like, "Yeah, F that guy."
It's like you're a Frankenstein's monster, man.
I tailed it out of there, man. I didn't get a single interview from a Raider player.
Jeez,
so it's
man.
funny. You say you're a WWE guy. You'd seen MJF on the thing, but there's one shot as I'm going through your art that you did at WrestleMania to kind of transition back to it. This is for the love of the show. I am one of your hosts, Spurge. Right next to me is the guy who inspired this book, the one and only, the author of For the Love of the Show, the one and only.
Good doctor.
And right below us is possibly one of the most fascinating guys I've talked to since we started this show, Mr. MAZ Adams. Sir, you were talking about AEW. You say you're a WWE diehard. So I got to ask you about this picture here because
let's see
the guy who put MJF on the map.
Yeah, I think I know where this is going. Let's see.
You took this picture here.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh man, that's so good.
Yeah.
And the good doctor said that he does the photography. I've been there. You can go find his stuff on reviewstl.com. But you took this picture, and you condensed it from the shot that put viral for you.
Yeah, so it's actually a different shot. So
I took a different shot.
Yeah, it's a different shot.
Slightly different shot.
I don't know. So explain.
No. It's literally a millisecond before the other shot. But yes, I did crop this one in a little bit. I love black and white. There's just something for me, and not everything. Like people ask, do you shoot it as black and white? Do you change it? I don't shoot it as black and white because not most things don't work as black and white.
Right.
But to me, people don't realize that colors inform your emotion. So I could take a piece of art and color it 10 different ways and make you feel 10 different ways about that piece. Once you take out color, all you have is the subject matter to make you feel something. There's a loneliness, there's a grittiness, a realness to it. And it makes like this photo versus the other one, he feels so alone here. He feels like a small thing, you know what I mean? But to answer your question, yeah, I probably took like 6 shots or 7 shots in the span of like 2 seconds of this, or probably more than that. So, you pick out the ones you like best. And this one happened to work as black and white. And again, this was from night 1 of WrestleMania. I was sitting dead center with the ring on the side. I was across from the hard cam side. And I got some great pyro shots. And again, this set is one of my absolute favorites. I knew what it meant to me, but I didn't know that these shots were going to mean so much to so many. But to me, the crazy thing is like, I don't shoot for anybody. So aside from the wrestlers sometimes saying, hey, can you send me these shots? Can I post them? Or me sharing them on the internet? Nobody is using it. I don't shoot for anybody, which to me, again, I'm not an arrogant person. I like to think I'm like one of the most humble people, but some of the shots that I get, and like, it's not like 1 or 2. I mean, I have thousands of beautiful, like just crazy good shots. And it's just like, to me, to think that they're, not being used for anything, it's mind blowing. But
it blows my mind, man.
You take what you're given in life, and you're grateful for it. So again, I'm drawing for the WWE. My art is sold in Yankee Stadium. I have pieces of art sold inside Yankee Stadium. Again, that's nuts to me. Like, I could going there as a kid, the original stadium. If you're like, hey, just so you know, in like 20 something years or 30, you're like 30 years, there's going to be a new stadium across the street, and they're going to have your art in there, and there's going to be a sign that has your name on it, that says, this is the price for this person. I'm going to be like, you can't dream this. Like, and I share it with my dad, like to see him cry when I'm on the field presenting one of my pieces of art for a guy that doesn't show his emotion, like to have him cry. It's just like, oh, shit. So
yeah. So we go from this black and white, where it looks like you literally just put Cody into it, this whole black and white. And I'm a very black and white person. The good doctor will tell you. For me, life is very simple. It's black and white. Life is just that simple. Why complicate it? All of that stuff. So you just go from this very simple black and white photo where you have Cody, where it looks like you just dropped him in, to you go to something like this right here with Jey Uso, who might be literally one of the most over guys in the world. What made you think that this was the shot that you wanted to use?
So,
what's the reasoning behind that?
So trust me, I have a lot of nice shots of Jey also, but to me, it's the grill. It's that you see the yeet on the sleeve, and it's that you got the fan in the background going along with him. So again, just like when I draw something, I want to include elements that tell a story of the person. To me, this is a very Jey Uso composition. And then you have the blue tint to the background. So there's a lot of little things going on that all tell the story of who he is and what's going on right now. Aside from that, I just think it's a nice shot, but
it is.
There's just a lot of stuff going on. Thank you. And the guy in the background, I was able to blur him out enough by how I shot it that, you see him, but he's not distracting you. It's a very Jey Uso shot. When I when I take pictures, I don't shoot.
I say that all the time.
Yeah. When I take pictures of people, look, I have some beautiful action shots. I have some RKOs flipping in midair, phenomenal forearms. To me, my favorite are the personal moments that show the intensity or the passion. I've got great ones to Cody, where he's like pumping up, and or even like the wrestlers interacting with the fans. Like I have one of Jey giving his glasses to a kid who was sitting right next to me. So I got like the best shots of, so it's like those little moments that tell the story of the sport without necessarily showing because like anybody can show like, photograph somebody swinging a bat, but it's the little interactions and the emotion inside of the game that to me are what's fun and most rewarding.
Now, when you go into a show, because I know from my perspective, like I'm already putting a list together of shots that I want to get at SummerSlam this year. You bring up Jey, I got to get one of him up on the turnbuckle, and I want to get it from kind of the side so you can see the crowd all going with them in unison.
Yep.
That's one. Now, when you go to these shows, do you kind of have in your mind, okay, I want to get a shot like this and the shot like this?
I think the tricky thing is for most shows, unless it's like a pay-per-view or a PLE, you don't always know what you're going to get. They might advertise, even on SmackDown, they might advertise certain things. I think once again, I'm a savant. I know this product inside and out. I legitimately love the hell out of wrestling, especially the WWE. So I think that once I hear music and I know who's coming out, like, I don't come with a written list, but it helps to know because then I also have to know what settings I'm going to be on. Some people will come in with the lights off and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to get this shot. Or some people do come in where at a certain point the lights go on. Jade Cargill is a great example. Her entrance, she comes in with the lights off and then even in the middle of the ring. And I have some beautiful black and white, even color shots of her where it just the lighting is silhouetting her and you see her doing her pose. So again, it's knowing that there you go. Well, that was a recent one. That was her entrance. Yeah. But I have ones where she's even just like all in shadow. But I love stuff like that. And I do have that shot. I have like a million shots. Like, again, not to name drop, it's just because it was cool. Shane Helms had messaged me because he had seen my photos, and he's like, "Hey man, do you have any of Logan at Mania doing the frog splash?" And I have like the whole succession of him. Like I literally have him touching his toes, like, midair, like crazy. So I told him, I was like, "Yeah, I have it on my computer. I just got to pull it." So I sent it to him. I'm like, out of curiosity, why did you want to see it? He's like, I wanted to show Logan. And he's like, I sent it to him. He thought it was awesome. I was like, like,
Yeah, dude, that was
that's
like you bring
crazy.
up.
And
I'm looking.
that's okay. It's there. It's there. And even Prime commented on it. The Prime account was like, I was like, dude, this is nuts. Are you? I think you're on mute.
Me?
No, I think he's on mute.
Oh, good doctor. You're on mute, bro.
All right. Sorry,
There you go. No, you're good, bud.
I'll put my light back on so you can
That's
see me.
okay.
My earbuds died.
Oh, rest in peace. What was time of death? Are we calling it?
I don't know.
8:33.
Holy moly.
Yeah, I wore them to the gym, working out this morning and didn't charge them, so I deserve what I get,
Oh,
I
here.
guess.
Okay, yeah.
But
this is the picture I have of you with for the Logan Paul.
Let me see.
It's right here. This one right here.
Oh, that's one. If you scroll, you'll see it, I think.
No, this is on your Instagram.
Yeah, but if you scroll, it's multiple shots.
Yeah.
I think if you you can scroll past to the next
Oh,
yeah.
there we go.
Yeah.
See, I
He's,
didn't know
touching
that.
his
Look at
toes.
that. So there you go.
You see?
So, you mentioned Logan, and one of my favorite shots of him that I got was last year in Detroit at SummerSlam. I got one of him up on the turnbuckle after he had, I don't know if he poured a Prime on himself or what, but he was flexing, and you can literally see the water beads all around him.
I love that.
It's a sick shot. I one of these days I'm gonna develop it and blow it up and hang it up in my basement, because it's one of them that I got lucky, and that's why I tell people most of my shots. It's for me, it's luck.
It is to a certain extent, but it's also being prepared for that moment, because
being prepared. Yeah,
if the moment's going to happen or not, you don't always know, but you can make sure that if it does happen, you're in the right position. Like during WrestleMania, the main event night 1, The Rock was in the crowd fighting a lot, and there was a point where he grabbed water, and I have the same kind of shot where he's smacking Seth Rollins with the water, and you see the water frozen. To me that's crazy. Like the other night I went, I know you probably saw him. I posted, I saw Garrett Cole rehab yesterday.
Yeah.
And I purposely got tickets behind home plate, and I have photos where you can read the baseball, because I was able to shoot at such high speed because it was so sunny out, where you could literally see the Rawlings logo on the baseball. It's just frozen right there.
Wow.
And to me, that's like the craziest stuff. There you go. There's some Garrett Coles. There you go. Just frozen. I mean,
well, that was the last one I had.
That's okay. So yeah, I mean, I live for that stuff. Like I get so excited when I'm like, holy crap. Like it never stops getting old. Like it never stops getting being exciting. It never gets old is what I mean.
And as someone who's been shooting for a little while now,
there you go.
I don't think people realize how difficult it is to get shots like you're talking about. I mean,
and I just want to point out right there too, if you look by the ball, there's actually a moth.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
But again, oh yeah, I did that on purpose. No, that's the luck of it.
Right.
Can you imagine the guy who got the picture right at the time of Randy Johnson
hitting the bird?
Yeah.
Can you imagine that shot there? How would that be?
He could,
now
listen. You know what he could do?
Ahead.
I was just going to say real quick. He could take a time machine now that he's a photographer and get the picture of himself doing it.
That is true. I've already been eyeballed 3 times by the fiance, because we've been recording for 2 hours. MAZ, I would love, because dinner's here. I'm already past dinner time. But MAZ, I would love to extend the offer for you to come back on another time. Maybe around maybe right after Clash of Castle, and we can talk about the Clash of Castle, all of that stuff.
The Clash of the Asshole. That's
right? Yeah, there you go.
That brings us back to the good doctor's locker room times.
Right, the good doctor's earbuds. Died, so we got to keep the quality up. We can't make it look bad. But tell everybody where they can find you, all of that stuff. And because, dude, I'm gonna have to. I have some ideas of some artwork that I want to get from you for the studio.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I will say this and this is for good reason. I'm gonna be busy for a long time, but it's all good stuff. If you like the first 4 prints from the WWE, hopefully it's just the beginning. There's a big event coming up in New York City, Fanatics Fest. There's going to be about 15 wrestlers there. Hopefully there'll be some new stuff. We'll see. But yeah, you can find me on Facebook under Maz Adams. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter or X, whatever they call it now. It's Maz Adams Art. My tip top, and my bottom. No, my TikTok is Maz Adams Art also. If you go on www.shop.com, there you go. You just type Maz. If you go on fanatics.com, type Maz. If you go on any shop like MLB shop, NFL shop, you just type in Maz, and I think my stuff will probably come up. But I would just ask that you guys hopefully buy the art, know that it's made by a true fan, just like all of you, and that hopefully if they do well, I can keep doing this and living the dream. And it's been amazing, and thank you both for having me.
No, man, I mean, it's been a pleasure. Good Doctor, tell people where they can find your book, all of that good stuff.
You can find my book on Amazon.com or on my personal website, jeremyhousewright.com.
And with that being said, I'm Spurge. Make sure you go and download our app, share and like our page on all of our social media, Fuel Sports Network. With that being said, we will see you guys next. Well, I mean, this is going to be a two-parter show. This is just part 2. We finished part 1, but we will see you guys next time.